According to Psychology Today, it's estimated that approximately 85% of people worldwide struggle with self-esteem. Think about that for a moment. There are roughly 8 billion people worldwide, and 6.8 billion struggle with self-esteem. That's staggering. And how do we get there? Babies aren't born with low self-esteem, and toddlers don't exhibit problems with self-esteem either. However, a recent study shows that children have developed a sense of self-esteem as strongly as adults at age 5. So it begs the question, how do we impact self-esteem at a young age while finding ways to meaningfully impact it at different points across the lifespan? The first place to start with self-esteem is to come from a place where you feel good just because. The idea here is that feeling good about yourself should be a fundamental human right, like having a roof over your head, food on the table, safe environments, and loving your relationships. Imagine strolling to your local hospital and making a pit stop at the labor delivery unit to explain to all the newborns that they don't want to get too carried away with feeling good about themselves. Instead, they need to suspend judgment on that and see if they've earned it at a later date. I know that sounds ridiculous, but at a relatively young age, kids learn that a significant component of their self-esteem isn't about feeling good just because it's a fundamental human right. Instead, feeling good about yourself is based on your perception of whether you or your actions are good enough. So this is an important step to continue to reinforce when managing your self-esteem. For step 2, it's indisputable that we live in a world with constant feedback. You get feedback from yourself, your family, your friends, and other people in society. And based on this feedback, it'll inevitably impact your self-esteem. So a good starting point is to construct a schema. So you're probably wondering, well, what's a schema? A schema is a blueprint about how you view yourself in all areas of your life. And the place to start is to get a sense of how you view yourself, especially in the areas that most impact your self-esteem. This would likely involve several different areas, such as your health, the quality of your relationships, your role as a partner, your role as a parent, finances, how you treat others, your ethics, your career, physical appearance, body image, and so on. You get the idea. So start by listing the areas that are important to you. Once you've completed that, I encourage you to give each one of these one of 3 ratings. And the ratings you would choose from are meets expectations, above expectations, or below expectations. And once that task is done, you have a visual representation of the various factors that impact your self-esteem. For a third step, it's time to start examining your ratings. While doing this, we'll watch out for several red flags and thought errors. So for step 3, the first thought error we'll watch out for is disqualifying the positive. Now the place to watch for this thought error will be in areas of your schema where you rate yourself as above or possibly meeting your expectations. So in these cases, disqualifying the positive would involve devaluing the importance of these areas of your schema because you've met or exceeded your expectations. This thought error occurs commonly when evaluating value-based or virtue-based characteristics such as being kind, thoughtful, a good friend, etc. As people find it easier to influence these characteristics or consider them to be a common expectation of people. So it becomes easier to downplay their importance despite being highly valued virtues. So whenever you disqualify the positive, it's important to identify when you're doing it and allow yourself to accept the win and value that characteristic as an important aspect of your self-esteem. Imagine for a moment this was a game, and whenever you scored a point, you weren't allowed to keep it. That'd be crazy making, and you probably quit playing. Yet you're disqualifying the positive when it comes to evaluating your self-esteem in a way that would allow you to feel good about yourself. It doesn't make sense, so let's start cutting that out. For step 4, when examining areas of your schema where you don't meet your expectations, a good place to start is to examine how realistic your expectations are. For example, I recall reading an interview with a high-level business executive at a Fortune 500 company several years ago. He was talking with the interviewer about his struggles with personal disappointment. He described being unhappy with his body image as he was only 12% body fat and felt that he couldn't feel good about that until he was at least 8%. Regarding finances, he was earning $1 million a year but felt disappointed that he wasn't earning at least $2 million a year. And although his kids seemed well-adjusted, he felt that he was falling short as a parent because there were times when his kids experienced disappointments and he felt he should be able to shield them from all of that. So in assessing areas where you don't feel you meet expectations, it certainly helps to examine if your expectations are realistic. For instance, in the previous examples, if you're not able to feel good about yourself as a parent or if your children experience disappointment, you might want to call Tom Cruise because it's mission impossible. As for the body fat and financial examples I mentioned, there's nothing wrong with having high achiever goals. However, it's helpful to determine if they're plausible given your current time and resources. If they aren't, this needs to be taken into account when assessing one's feelings of self-worth. Otherwise, you're essentially beating yourself up for something that you're unable or unwilling to invest time and resources in at this juncture, which is pretty unfair to you. For my fifth step, be mindful about how you weigh the factors that impact your self-esteem. Imagine that all factors impacting your self-esteem are included in a pie graph. What would the factors be, and how big would each slice of that pie be? In psychology, we call this variance. And I suggest completing this exercise and taking a look at it. When you do this, do the factors influencing your self-esteem seem balanced? Are there areas that seem way too big? Would you be comfortable showing this to someone else? How would you feel if a loved one had a pie graph similar to yours? Do you feel they'd be placing too much emphasis on certain areas that they don't feel good about? Would you feel they're shrinking the importance of areas where they feel good about themselves? And did you remember to include a meaningful amount of your pie graph for feeling good about yourself just because it's a basic human right? These are all important factors to consider, as it's crucial to choose the correct size for the factors that impact how you feel about yourself. And for my sixth and final step, avoid all or nothing thinking when evaluating your self-esteem. If you're wondering what all or nothing thinking means, it's a tendency to feel good about everything or nothing. For instance, with self-esteem, someone would be committing this thought error if they're unable to feel good about themselves. If there are several areas where they feel dissatisfied, and even though there are several areas where they could feel good. Another area where this can show up is how you assess an area where you're dissatisfied. For instance, if you're dissatisfied with your current body image, it shouldn't be assessed in an all or nothing matter. Instead, it's important to acknowledge the aspects you feel good about, accurately assess the gap between where you are and where you want to be, and feel good about any progress you make along the way, as opposed to choosing to feel bad about yourself until you fully achieve your goal. So to provide a quick recap, first, it's important to feel good about yourself just because. Feeling good about yourself should be a basic human right, because if you can never feel good, life becomes an exercise in suffering. Second, I encourage you to construct a schema or blueprint of the different factors that impact your self-esteem and assign them ratings so you can use logic to assess self-esteem rather than just feelings. For my third step, when you evaluate your rating, watch out for the thought error of disqualifying the positive. That means if you rate an area that impacts your self-esteem highly, you want to acknowledge it properly and feel good about it, as opposed to minimizing it or undermining it altogether as something that doesn't matter, is no big deal. Fourth, it's important to examine how realistic your expectations are when evaluating your self-esteem. This doesn't mean you can't have high expectations for yourself or that you need to set the bar really low in order to feel good. But it does mean that people tend to set expectations unrealistically high in relation to the time, energy, and resources they have at a given time. So when someone's unable to impact an area of their self-esteem the way they would like to, they can tend to feel like failures, which just further harms their self-esteem. For my fifth step, you want to be mindful on how you weigh your self-esteem, or in other words, how much importance you assign to various factors that impact it. You assign a lot of value to factors that you're unable to impact, such as your height, or you overinflate the importance of other areas, such as appearance. It becomes increasingly difficult to feel good about yourself. And for my sixth and final step, it's important to watch out for the thought error of all or nothing thinking when evaluating self-esteem. That means you decide whether you feel good about yourself or not. A better approach is to acknowledge that there are areas you may not be totally satisfied with, but also good areas, and then allow yourself to recognize and feel good about those areas of your self-esteem. So I hope you found these steps helpful. If you're interested in learning more about improving self-esteem, please get in touch with us at Sullivan Associates Clinical Psychology. If you enjoyed this video, like it, share it, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.